Hello. So sorry. I got caught up in the euphoria of sharing Black Lives Matter posts on Instagram, and then I came across one that was like, there's a city council meeting that we should all call into, and I was like, oh, cool, I'll do that. And I'm like, Monday, the 29th, that's now. And then I was like, 2 o'clock. And then I'm like, oh, have I missed it? And then I'm like, oh God, what time is it? And then I looked at my phone, which is not on all the way. If that makes sense. I don't have my buzzer on because sometimes it goes a little crazy. So haywire. There we go. Goes a little haywire. Reword your language if it is ableist. Yes, that's how we do it. Anyway, so sorry that I am late today, but I'm here now, and that's the important bit. I'm getting started on my internship tomorrow. It's already an internship that I've done partway. I'm just finishing it off. Hello, that's me. I am here a little late, but happy to be here nonetheless and living my truth. I had therapy this morning, very helpful. Haven't felt called out in therapy in a while. Was called out today, so that's good. We love some healing rewiring of our brain energy. That's how we do it. Let's rewire the brain. What was I saying? What was I thinking? I think many thoughts sometimes. Okay, no, I think we're ready. But anyways, just to reiterate, in case you fell off or weren't here, but I was reblogging things. I was putting things on my Instagram story. I got caught up in the euphoria of posting about Black Lives Matter that I forgot about my reading, which is like the best, hopefully, like thing to forget about everything for. So, yeah, that's what I have to say about that today. Okay. What happened in Wuthering Heights yesterday? So, yesterday, Kathy and Heathcliff went to the Linton house to spy on their children. And while they were there, one of the Linton children, after they had just like abused their poor little dog, who like still hurts me in my very core of my soul to hear that. Sorry. So, hurt their poor little dog. They're looking at because children are like looking in the window. So the children of the Linton family are like, excuse me, there are 2 kids outside our window. So they freak out. And one of the servants lets their pit bull loose on them, which is, how pit bulls are represented. And the pit bull like takes down Kathy and is like chewing on her ankle. And Heathcliff's, of course, like, oh my God. And one of the parents comes out or something. Somebody comes out. They're like, let's maybe not have our dog eat this child. And so they bring the kids in, and like the parents are being extremely bad. Like is the best way the best language that I have to say it right now. They're very biased and like guilty until proven innocent, and like these are children, and they're like, let's guillotine them, and we're like, sir, they did nothing. Their only crime was to look, and that is not a crime. So these parents are awful too, but one of the children, I think maybe eventually figures out that, oh my God, this is Kathy Earnshaw, our neighbor, who our dog is like chewing on. And so they decide to keep Kathy with them, but they send Heathcliff home. And sending Heathcliff home, that's a nice way, very nice, like forgiving way of what they do. They're like, we don't want you to sleep in our house, 12-year-old man, so you need to leave. And he's 12. So naturally that's gonna hurt. Uh, so he leaves and he's like looks back and he sees like Kathy like getting inducted into this family essentially, which I feel does not bode well for Heathcliff and his attachment to Kathy. But anyways, he goes back to the house and he talks to Nessie, I think is the servant's name, or it could be Nellie, and Nessie is the Loch Ness monster. I think it's Nellie now that I've said those words out loud. Yes, it is Nellie. Heathcliff has a conversation with the Loch Ness monster, which is a different book. So yes, that is what happened yesterday. All right, let's do this. For some reason, I've had the urge to say The Age of Innocence, like chapter whatever with this book. Don't know why. Okay. Wuthering Heights, Volume 1. I was supposed to look at how many. Let's do it right now. Okay, Volume 1 has. Good Lord. Sweet Lord, you play me false. Hey, Chihuahua. Okay. Volume 1 has 24 chapters. Volume 2 has good Lord. Oh, I guess there is only 2 volumes. Wow. Okay. Volume 2 has... Oh, I was wrong. 14 chapters. 14 and 20. So what's 20 plus 14? 34. So it should take us about 34 days to get through this bad boy. Yes. Okay. All right, let's do this. Wuthering Heights, Chapter 7, Volume 1. Kathy stayed at Thrushcross Grange 5 weeks till Christmas. By that time her ankle was thoroughly cured, and her manners much improved. The mistress visited her often in the interval and commenced her plan of reform by trying to raise her self-respect with fine clothes and flattery, which she took readily, so that instead of a wild, hatless little savage jumping into the house and rushing to squeeze us all breathless, there lighted from a handsome black pony a very dignified person, with brown ringlets falling from the cover of a feathered beaver, excuse me, and a long cloth habit which she was obliged to hold up with both hands that she might sail in. Oh no! Oh no! I'm certainly hatless. We're all hatless here. Hindley lifted her from the horse, exclaiming delightedly, "Why, Kathy, you are quite a beauty. I should scarcely have known you. You look like a lady now. Isabella Linton is not to be compared with her, is she, Francis?" The feminist implications of that sentence. Okay. "Isabella has not her natural advantages," replied his wife, "but she must mind and not grow wild again here. Ellen, help Miss Catherine off with her things. Stay, dear, you would disarrange your curls. Let me untie your hat. Heaven forbid my curls should be disarranged. What would happen?" I removed the habit, and there shone forth beneath a grand plaid silk frock, white trousers, and burnished shoes. And while her eyes sparkled joyfully when the dogs came bounding up to welcome her, she dare hardly touch them, lest they should fawn upon her splendid garments. She kissed me gently. I was all flour making the Christmas cake, and it would not have done to give me a hug. And then she looked round for Heathcliff. Mr. and Mrs. Earnshaw watched anxiously their meeting, thinking it would enable them to judge, in some measure, what grounds they had for hoping to succeed in separating the two friends. Heathcliff was hard to discover at first. If he were careless and uncared for before Catherine's absence, he had been 10 times more since. Nobody but I even did him the kindness to call him a dirty boy, oh wow, and bid him wash himself once a week, and children of his age seldom have a natural pleasure in soap and water. Therefore, not to mention his clothes, which had seen 3 months' service in mire and dust, and his thick, uncombed hair, the surface of his face and hands was dismally beclouded. He might well skulk behind the settle, and he might well skulk behind the settle on beholding such a bright, graceful damsel enter the house, instead of a rough-headed counterpart to himself as he expected. Is Heathcliff not here? She demanded, pulling off her gloves and displaying fingers wonderfully whitened, gross, with doing nothing and staying indoors. Wonderfully. That's gross. Heathcliff, you may come forward, cried Mr. Hindley, enjoying his discomfiture and gratified to see what a forbidding young man he would be compelled to present himself. You may come and wish, oh my lord, I cannot speak today. You may come and wish Miss Catherine welcome, like the other servants. Awful! Cathy, catching a glimpse of her friend in his concealment, flew to embrace him. She bestowed 7 or 8 kisses on his cheek with the second, and then stopped and, drawing back, burst into a laugh. Why, how very cross you look, and how funny and grim. But that's because I'm used to Edgar and Isabella Linton. Well, Heathcliff, have you forgotten me? She had some reason to put the question, for shame and pride threw double gloom over his countenance, and kept him immovable. Shake hands, Heathcliff, said Mr. Earnshaw condescendingly, once in a way that is permitted. I shall not, replied the boy, finding his tongue at last. I shall not stand to be laughed at. I shall not bear it. And he would have broken from the circle, but Miss Cathy seized him again. I did not mean to laugh at you, she said. I could not hinder myself. Heathcliff, shake hands at least. What are you sulky for? It was only that you looked odd. If you wash your face and brush your hair, it will be all right. But you were so dirty. She gazed concernedly at the dusky fingers she held in her own, and also at her dress. Which she feared had gained no embellishment from its contact with him. Ugh. You needn't have touched me, he answered, following her eye and snatching away his hand. I shall be as dirty as I please, and I like to be dirty, and I will be dirty. You know what? Okay, I'll take it. With that, he dashed head foremost out of the room amid the merriment of the master and mistress, and to the serious disturbance of Catherine, who would not comprehend how her remarks should have produced an exhibition of bad temper. After playing lady's maid to the newcomer, and putting my cakes in the oven, and making the house and kitchen cheerful with great fires befitting Christmas Eve, I prepared to sit down and amuse myself by singing carols all alone, regardless of Joseph's affirmations that he considered the merry tunes I chose as next door to songs. What? Are you not supposed to sing? I'm sure that's not what Joseph wants. How dare you sing? Okay. He had retired to private prayer in his chambers, and Mr. and Mrs. Earnshaw were engaging Missy's attention by sundry gay trifles brought for her to present to the little Lintons, as acknowledgment of their kindness. They had invited them to spend the morrow at Wuthering Heights, and the invitation had been accepted on one condition. Mrs. Linton begged that her darlings might be kept carefully apart from that naughty, swearing boy. Ew! Under these circumstances, I remained solitary. I smelt the rich scent of the heating spices, and admired the shining kitchen utensils, the polished clock decked in holly, the silver mugs ranged on a tray ready to be filled with with mulled ale. I can't speak the French, but I think, oh dear. Oh no, if you two just have a conversation in French, you can completely keep me out of everything you say. Okay. Oh, sorry. We left off with me saying muled ale. Ale, that's what I thought. But anyways, ale that has been soaked in mules. Mulled ale for supper, and above all, the speckless purity of my particular care, the scoured and well-slept floor. Did I say slept or swept? I'm on a roll. The scoured and well-swept floor. I gave due inward applause to every object, and then I remembered how Earnshaw used to come in when all was tidied and call me a cant lass. I don't know what that means, and slip a shilling into my hand as a Christmas box. And from that I went on to think of his fondness for Heathcliff, and his dread lest he should suffer neglect after death had removed him, and that naturally led me to consider the poor lad's situation now, and from the singing I changed my mind to crying. It struck me soon, however, there would be more sense in endeavoring to repair some of his wrongs than shedding tears over them. I got up and walked into the court to seek him. He was not far. I found him smoothing the glossy coat of the new pony in the stable and feeding to the other beasts according to custom. Make haste, Heathcliff, I said. The kitchen is so comfortable. Joseph is upstairs. Make haste, and let me dress you smart before Miss Cathy comes out. And then you can sit together, with the whole hearth to yourselves, and have a long chatter till bedtime. He proceeded with his task and never turned his head towards me. Come, are you coming? I continued. There's a little cake for each of you, nearly enough, and you'll need a half an hour's dawning. I waited 5 minutes, but getting no answer left him. Cathy supped with her brother and sister-in-law. Joseph and I joined in an unsociable meal, seasoned with reproofs on one side and sauciness on the other. His cake and cheese remained on the table all night for the fairies. He managed to continue work till 9 o'clock and then marched dumb and dour to his chamber. Cathy sat up late, having a world of things to order for the reception of her new friends. She came into the kitchen once to speak to her old one, but he was gone, and she only stayed to ask what was the matter with him, and then went back. In the morning he rose early, and as it was a holiday, carried his ill humor on to the moors, not reappearing till the family were departed for church. Fasting and reflecting seemed to have brought him to a better spirit. He hung about me for a while, and having screwed up his courage, exclaimed abruptly, Nellie, make me decent. I'm going to be good. High time, Heathcliff, I said. You have grieved Catherine. She's sorry she ever came home, I dare say. It looks as if you envied her because she is more thought of than you. The notion of envying Catherine was incomprehensible to him, but the notion of grieving her he understood clearly enough. Did she say she was grieved? He inquired, looking very serious. She cried when I told her you were off again this morning. Well, I cried last night, he returned, and I had more reason to cry than she. Yes, you had the reason of going to bed with a proud heart and an empty stomach, said I. Proud people breed sad sorrows for themselves. But if you be ashamed of your touchiness, you must ask pardon, mind, when she comes in. You must go up and offer to kiss her, and say, you know best what to say. Only do it heartily, and not as if you thought her converted into a stranger by her grand dress. And now, though I have dinner to get ready, I'll steal time to arrange you so that Edgar Linton shall look quite a doll besides you. And that he does. You are younger, and yet I'll be bound you are taller and twice as broad as across the shoulders. You could knock him down in a twinkling. Don't you feel that you could? Heathcliff's face brightened a moment. Then it was overcast fresh, and he sighed. But Nellie, if I knocked him down 20 times, that would make him less handsome, or me more so. What? Oh, whoops. Okay. But if I knocked him down 40, geez, Aloo, I cannot speak. But Nellie, if I knocked him down 20 times, that wouldn't make him less handsome, or me more so. I wish I had, oh boy, this is sad. I wish I had light hair and a fair skin, and was dressed and behaved as well, and had a chance of being as rich as he will be. That's rough. To my knowledge, I think Heathcliff is like still white, but is just like has dark hair, and tans easily. I don't know. Anyways, a lot of the characters in the book regard him as less because of the tone of his skin, which is very upsetting and obviously has engaged in his young psyche. Yes, that too. Much, much, this is a long one. Okay, well, okay. And cried for mamma at every turn, I added, and trembled if a country lad heaved his fists against you, and sat at home all day for a shower of rain. Oh, Heathcliff, you are showing a poor spirit. Come to the glass, and I'll let you see what you should wish. Do you see? Do you mark those two lines between your eyes, and those thick brows that instead of rising arched, sink into the middle? What the heck? Okay, this is a tough passage. And that a what? I don't know what this means. So how let's analyze it. Okay. Do you mark those two lines between your eyes and those thick brows that instead of rising arched, sink in the middle, and that couple of black fiends, so deeply buried, who never open their windows boldly, but lurk glinting under them like the devil's spies? Are she talking about his eyes? That's so like I guess it's colorism? I think that's a phrase that Ibram X. Kendi used in his book. Um, okay. I know. Wish and learn to smooth away the surly wrinkles, to raise your lids frankly, and change the fiends to confident innocent angels, suspecting and doubting nothing, and always seeing friends where they are not sure foes. Don't get the expression of a vicious cur that appears to know the kicks it gets are its desert and yet hates all the world, as well as the kicker for what it suffers. Don't get the expression of a vicious cur that appears to know the kicks it gets are its dessert. Are like the best thing that happens to it? Don't understand this one. And yet hates all the world, as well as the kicker for what it suffers. Huge yikes. Oh, this is a. Okay. I'm like trying to like swoop ahead. Basically, the next couple of passages, yeah, there's a lot of like self-hatred and encouraged hatred of the way that he looks in the next two passages. And it's also like a racialized hatred that's being encouraged. From the way that we look at it now, we see Heathcliff as like the what am I saying? Yes, thank you. I guess the sympathetic character, and he is the protagonist of this book, even though it's, again, interestingly, being told through several levels of narration, so that Heathcliff himself is never the narrator except through like three other people, or at least one other person's one other person's thing. So what I think I'm going to do is I think I'm going to read it. And I think that I don't know. Um, lens. I don't know what you were referring to. It's, I don't think I'm gonna read it. I'm just gonna acknowledge that it's there, and if that's not like enough, that's also fair. Um, but I think we've already established what we need to know in this, and we don't need to go on. Um, but I'm also open to reading it to acknowledge it's there. Any thoughts? If not, I'm just gonna go for it. And when I say go for it, I mean skip it. Um, okay. So I'm gonna take off. It is, and it's also like more of like these are the traits that I want to have, and like I guess that one's weird. And there is like something that I like. It's actually like straight up like racist towards Black folks. Um, I can't even say that she was like doing well. But also like I don't, we're meant to sympathize with Heathcliff, I believe. Ah, this is tough, and it should be tough. Um, yeah. Oh boy. Okay. Um, yeah. I guess like the only way for us to make an informed decision is to know what she says. Like I can't convey it to you without the okay, let's do it. All right. So, this is Nellie. Okay. No wait, this is Heathcliff. In other words, I must wish for Edgar Linton's great blue eyes and even forehead, he replied. I do, and that won't help me to them. So there's the self-hatred that he's being taught and enforced over and over to like lay into. And this is the truly bad sentence. I mean, all of it is bad, but this is like the most egregious offense in my level of current education. Okay. This is the maid now, Nellie. Okay. A good heart will help you to a bonny face, my lad, I continued. And this is the rough one. If you were a regular black, and a bad one will turn the bonniest into something worse than ugly. That's so like that thought pattern is so deeply ingrained in like racism And yeah, it's just this like deeply like I don't know what that means, Patricia. Is like romantic era? Um it's okay, romantic era. I was like, I don't know what that means. I haven't taken an English class recently. There's no romantic era of film. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna keep moving. And now that we've done washing and combing and sulking, tell me whether you don't think yourself rather handsome. I'll tell you, I do. You're fit for a prince in disguise. And this is like some like incoming orientalism slash like exoticism. So just know that. So she says, who knows, but your father was Emperor of China and your mother an Indian queen, each of them able to buy up with 1 week's income Wuthering Heights and Thrushcross Grange together. And you were kidnapped by wicked sailors and brought to England. Were I in your place, I would frame high notions of my birth, and the thoughts of what I should give me courage and dignity to support the oppression of a little farmer. Now that you, yeah. So anyways, that passage is just packed with microaggressions, or as Ibram X. Kendi would call them, racial abuse. There's nothing to say. Like these are the I guess these are the authentic opinions of a maid in that day and age, and it doesn't make them right. But it is accurate to how Heathcliff would have to experience this world, even though he seems to be still white. So that is my short and incomplete analysis of that passage and the colorism that Heathcliff experiences. Okay. So I chattered on, and Heathcliff gradually lost his frown and began to look quite unpleasant, when all at once our conversation was interrupted by a rumbling sound moving up the road and entering the court. He ran to the window and I to the door, just in time to behold the 2 Lintons descend from the family carriage, smothered in cloaks and furs, and the Earnshaws dismount from their horses. They often rode to church in winter. Catherine took a hand of each of the children and brought them into the house and set them before the fire, which quickly put color in their white faces. There we go. I urged my companion to hasten now and show his amiable humor, and he willingly obeyed, but ill luck would have it. As he opened the door leading from the kitchen on one side, Hindley opened it on the other. They met, and the master, irritated at seeing him clean and cheerful, or perhaps eager to keep his promise to Mrs. Linton, shoved him back with a sudden thrust, and angrily bade Joseph keep the fellow out of the room, and sent him into the garret till dinner is over. He'll be cramming his fingers in the tarts and stealing the fruits if left alone with them for a minute. That is so awful. Nay, sir, I could not avoid answering. He'll touch nothing, not he. And I suppose he must have his share of the dainties as well as we. Oof, okay. He shall have his share of my hand if I catch him downstairs again till dark, cried Hindley. Begone, you vagabond! What, are you attempting the coxcomb, are you? Wait till I get a hold of those elegant locks. See if I won't pull them a bit longer. Hindley is so, like, jealous of this child, and it must be, like, in part, like, he's an awful person, number one. But number two, like, and this is not an excuse, but an analysis, like, he must feel this like intense feeling of like jealousy to this child for befriending his father in a way that's just like illogical and just entirely selfishly based. Okay. Who's Master Linton? Oh God, not Master Linton. "They are long enough already," observed Master Linton, peeping from the doorway. "I wonder they don't make his head ache. It's like a colt's mane over his eyes. What do you think? Like, uh, women have extremely long hair, and I don't know what's going on with Master Linton. His level of the way that he the way that he his like illogical logic, is that what I'm trying to say? Buffoonery, that too. Okay. He ventured this remark without any intention to insult. Ugh. But Heathcliff's violent nature? What do you mean? Was not prepared to endure the appearance of impertinence from one whom he seemed to hate, and then as a rival. He seized a tureen of hot applesauce, the first thing that came under his gripe, and dashed it full against, oh my gosh, the speaker's face and neck, who instantly commenced a lament that brought Isabella and Catherine hurrying to the place. Mr. Earnshaw snatched up the culprit directly and conveyed him to his chamber, where doubtless he administered a rough remedy to cool the fit of passion, for he reappeared red and breathless. I got the dishcloth and rather spitefully scrubbed Edgar's nose and mouth, affirming it served him right for meddling. His sister began weeping to go home, and Cathy stood by confounded, blushing for all. "You should not have spoken to him," she expostulated with Master Linton. "He was in a bad temper, and now you've spoilt your visit, and he'll be flogged. I hate him to be flogged. I can't eat my dinner. Why did you speak to him, Edgar?" Oh, this is the kid. Yeah. Like what way was he supposed to learn to like experience his feelings if every time that Mr. Earnshaw gets upset with him, he beats him? Like, the applesauce was the least of our worries. So this was the kid. "I didn't," sobbed the youth, escaping from my hands and finishing the remainder of the purification with his cambric pocket handkerchief. "I promised Mamma I wouldn't say one word to him, and I didn't." "Well, don't cry," replied Catherine contemptuously. "You're not killed. Don't make more mischief. My brother is coming. Be quiet. Give over, Isabella. Has anybody hurt you?" God bless. There, children, to your seats," cried Hindley, bustling in. "That brute of a lad has warned me nicely. That is horrific. Next time, Master Edgar, take the law into your own fists. It will give you an appetite." Ugh. Hindley is a psychopath? A sociopath? He's not good, and something is wrong with his moral compass, horrifically. The little party recovered its equanimity at sight of the fragrant feast. They were hungry after their ride and easily consoled, since no real harm had befallen them. I also feel like the dad was not as bad, though, but maybe I'm wrong, because the dad genuinely liked Heathcliff. But that doesn't mean you can't be abusive. Okay. But anyway, since no real harm had befallen them is the key phrase. Okay. Mr. Earnshaw, this is going to be a long chapter. I still have, it's one more page. Mr. Earnshaw carved bountiful platefuls, and the mistress made them merry with lively talk. I waited behind her chair and was pained to behold Catherine, with dry eyes and an indifferent air, commence cutting up the wing of a goose before her. An unfeeling child, I thought to myself. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, that too. Yeah. Okay. An unfeeling child, oh wait. I thought to myself, how lightly she dismisses her old playmate's troubles. I could not have imagined her to be so selfish. She lifted a mouthful to her lips. Then she set it down again. Her cheeks flushed and the tears gushed over them. Well, maybe if you had waited 15 seconds before judging her, Nellie. She slipped her fork to the floor and hastily dived under the cloth to conceal her emotion. I did not call her unfeeling long, for I perceived she was in purgatory throughout the day, and wearying to find an opportunity of getting by herself or paying a visit to Heathcliff, who had been locked up by the master, as I discovered on endeavoring to introduce to him a private mess of victuals. In the evening we had a dance. Cathy begged that he might be liberated then, as Isabella Linton had no partner. Her entreaties were vain, and I was appointed to supply the deficiency. We got rid of all gloom in the excitement of the exercise, and our pleasure was increased by the arrival of the Gimmerton band, mustering 15 strong. There's like 6 people, and you guys need a whole band? A trumpet, a trombone, clarinets, bassoons, French horns, and a bass viol, besides singers. They go the rounds of they're caroling. They go the rounds of all the respectable houses and receive contributions every Christmas, and we esteemed it a first-rate treat to hear them. After the usual carols had been sung, we set them to songs and glees. Mrs. Earnshaw loved the music, and so they gave us plenty. Catherine loved it too, but she said it sounded sweetest at the top of the steps, and she went up in the dark. I followed. They shut the house's door below, never noting our absence. It was so full of people. She made no stay at the stairs' head, but mounted farther, to the garret where Heathcliff was confined, and called him. He stubbornly declined answering for a while. She persevered, and finally persuaded him to hold a communion with her through the boards. I let the poor things converse unmolested, till I supposed the songs were going to cease, and the singers to get some refreshment. Then I clambered up the ladder to warn her. Instead of finding her outside, I heard her voice within. The little monkey had crept by the skylight of one garret, along the roof, into the skylight of the other, and it was with the utmost difficulty I could coax her out again. Look at her go. When she did come, Heathcliff came with her, and she insisted that I should take him into the kitchen, as my fellow servant had done to a neighbor's, to be removed from the sound of our devil's psalmody, as it pleased him to call it. Should take him into the kitchen. Oh! Okay. So one of the servants was like, these carolers are the worst. And I literally have to leave this house to get away from these carolers. I told them I intended by no means to encourage their tricks, but as the prisoner had never broken his fast since yesterday's dinner, I would wink at his cheating Mr. Hindley that once. He went down. I set him to a stool by the fire and offered him a quantity of good things, but he was sick and could eat little, and my attempts to entertain him were thrown away. He leant his 2 elbows on his knees and his chin on his hands, and remained wrapped in dumb meditation. That's an ableist word, dumb. So, if you can, we should all attempt to remove that one from our vocabulary. Okay. On inquiring the subject of his thoughts, he answered gravely, I'm trying to settle how I shall pay Hindley back. I don't care how long I wait, if I can only do it at last. I hope he will not die before I do. For shame, Heathcliff, said I. It is for God to punish wicked people. We should learn to forgive. No, God won't have the satisfaction that I shall, he returned. I only wish I knew the best way. Let me alone and I'll plan it out. While I'm thinking of that, I don't feel pain. But, Mr. Lockwood, I forget these tales cannot divert you. I'm annoyed how I should dream of chattering on at such a rate. And your gruel cold, and you nodding for bed. I could have told Heathcliff's story, all that you need to hear, in 6 words. Thus interrupting herself, the housekeeper rose and proceeded to lay beside her sewing, but I felt incapable of moving from the hearth, and I was very far from nodding. Sit still, Miss Dean, I cried. Do sit still another half hour. You've done just right to tell the story leisurely. That is the method I like, and you must finish in the same style. I am interested in every character you have mentioned, more or less. The clock is on the stroke of 11, sir. No matter. I'm not accustomed to go to bed in the long hours. 1 or 2 is early enough for a person who lies till 10. You shouldn't lie till 10. There's the very prime of the morning gone before that time. A person who has not done one half of his day's work by 10 o'clock runs a chance of leaving the other half undone. Whoopsies. Nevertheless, Mrs. Dean, resume your chair, because tomorrow I intend lengthening the night till afternoon. I prognosticate for myself an obstinate cold, at least. I hope not, sir. You must allow me to leap over some 3 years. During that space, Mrs. Earnshaw. No, I'll allow nothing of the sort. Are you acquainted with the mood of mind in which, if you were seated alone and the cat licking its kitten on the rug before you, you would watch the operation so intently that Puss's neglect of one ear would put you seriously out of temper? Mr. Lockwood seems like he would get a lot of fun out of the sandblasting videos. A terribly lazy mood, I should say. On the contrary, a tiresomely active one. It is mine at present, and therefore continue minutely. I perceive that people in these regions acquire over people in towns the value that a spider in a dungeon does over a spider in a cottage. I don't know what that means. To their various occupants, and yet the deepened attraction is not entirely owing to the situation of the looker-on. They do live more in earnest, more in themselves, and less in surface change and frivolous external things. I'm so confused. I could fancy a love life. I could fancy a love for life here almost impossible, and I was a fixed unbeliever in any love of a year's standing. One state resembles setting a hungry man down to a single dish on which he may concentrate his entire appetite, and do it justice. The other introducing him to a table laid out by French cooks. He can perhaps extract as much enjoyment from the whole, but each part is a mere atom in his regard and remembrance. Who's the dad in Hamlet? Not Ghost Hamlet. Not King Hamlet. No, that's Ghost Hamlet. Ghost Hamlet is King Hamlet. Laertes is his son. Laertes and Ophelia. He's the guy who gets stabbed. The first death by Hamlet's hand. Horatio is definitely wrong. Polonius. Yes. Thank you. Polonius. This is like Polonius level talking. Okay. Oh, and here we are the same as anywhere else when you get to know us, observed Mrs. Dean, somewhat puzzled at my speech. Excuse me, I responded. You, my good friend, are striking evidence against that assertion. I hate this guy. Excepting a few provincialisms of slight consequence, you have no marks of the manners that I am habituated to consider as peculiar to your class. Ah! Excuse me? I am sure you have thought a great deal more than the generality of servants think. Well, maybe, just maybe, you are wrong. You are backwards, Mr. Lockwood, sir. You are not thinking. You are the one who is not thinking. You have been compelled to cultivate your reflective faculties for want of occasions for fritting your life away in silly trifles. Mrs. Dean laughed. Thank you, Mrs. Dean. I certainly esteem myself a steady, reasonable kind of body, she said. Not exactly from living among the hills and seeing one set of faces and one series of actions from year's end to year's end, but I have undergone sharp discipline, which has taught me wisdom, and then I have read more than you would fancy, Mr. Lockwood. You could not open a book in this library that I have not looked into, and got something out of also, unless it be that range of Greek and Latin, and that of French, and those I know one from another. It is as much as you can expect of a poor man's daughter. However, if I am to follow my story in true gossip's fashion, I had better go on, and instead of leaping 3 years, I will be content to pass to the next summer, the summer of 1778. That is, nearly 23 years ago. 1776 is a year that is mentioned in Hamilton, so I assume it has something to do with the birth of the United States. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's like when we declared independence. Somebody needs to do somebody needs to do a little more research. Revolutionary War. Thank you. So that's when we were when I say we, I suppose I like white dudes because my family was not to come here for a very long time. Yes, this is like the best way for me to like know what time period things are in is to look at the costumes. And so knowing what the costumes look like really helped me. So now, excuse me, now I know what the costumes look like. Everything's great and fun. Oh, that was the end. Sorry. Sometimes I just close the book. Oh my God, another long chapter. I didn't think it would be that long, but sometimes it is. I don't know how. It's going to take forever to get through this book. Good Lord. All right. Thank you for reading with me today. Thanks for helping me. You too. We did do much discussing, and I want to say a huge thank you for discussing with me, because this is a book that I have not read while undergoing any level of like education on it. If you like education in general. So when I read it the first time, but now I'm reading it with a much broader mindset. Not that it's as broad as it can get or will be in the future. So I just want to say a really big thank you for helping me to talk through these things, being down to talk through these things, and just being incredible analytical minds all around. So thank you. Thank you. I'm going to say I'll see you tomorrow we'll try it tomorrow at 3. I'm starting my internship. So they may need me to be doing things at 3, but I do get an hour off for lunch. So maybe I'll say that like I'll take a half hour at 1 to eat and a half hour at 3 to do this. Although it did turn into 52 minutes. So she's a professional, but also she's really tired of the system where they don't pay people to do work for them. And that's just expected. But I really like the company, but that's not an excuse. All right. Thank you, royalty of my YouTube lives. I love you. I love the both of you that I've seen in the chat today, and whoever you are, mystery person, I love you too. Okie dokie. I will see you all tomorrow at 3. As always, wonderful. No worries. Okay, thanks for tuning in. Let's silent comrade. All right, let's fight the unpaid internship system and see you tomorrow to continue to read Wuthering Heights. Okie dokios. Bye. Thank you. Uh-oh. Bye.